This is The New School with your host, Christine Hong. Welcome to a new kind of school, where we talk about career paths you don't normally get to hear about in the classroom. Every episode, I talk to someone with an interesting life path and learn about how they got to where they are today. My guest today is Joey Roth. Now, this guy has one of the most interesting lives. I wish we got it covered all in the episode. After graduating college, he started out in San Francisco running his own video game business. While he was doing that, he decided to go to Hawaii to fulfill his lifelong dream of building his own treehouse, even though he had no experience working on a house ever. After he built his treehouse and started Airbnbing it out, the company Airbnb heard about him and recruited him to be their global operations manager, so he headed back to San Francisco to work at their headquarters full time. However, he felt the call of Hawaii, so he returned there to work full time on building houses. Today, we're going to focus on how he figured out how to build a completely sustainable house with no experience and how he lives full time as an Airbnb host. Joey, thank you so much for coming on to my show and Skyping in from Hawaii.
Christine, how are you?
I'm amazing. How are you?
Oh my gosh, Christine, can I just take a moment here at the beginning to say thank you?
Why?
Well, first of all, I've always known you're the type of person to create something. And so when I heard that you were doing a podcast and I heard you wanted to have me as a guest, I was so honored and grateful because I know you're one of those super curious, logical people, and I've always found that inspiring about you. And I know that you have ultra high standards for everything you do. And so this podcast is going to be an amazing thing. I look forward to hearing all of your guests.
That was really beautiful. I'm actually almost about to cry.
I'm so grateful to have you as a friend.
Me too. Mahalo. Wait, does that mean thank you? I can't remember.
Mahalo does mean thank you.
So, what did you want to be growing up? Was there anything about tree houses involved in there?
Oh, the treehouse. I mean, who doesn't have a dream of having a treehouse in Hawaii?
I don't think I do.
You don't think you want to have a treehouse in Hawaii?
Lauren 100% does because it was so sustainable. You know, she wants a sustainable house like yours. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really was an exercise in sustainability and minimalism and simplicity. Yeah, I guess I did have this dream about, you've been to my house before. You know, it's not like what people would typically envision when they think of a treehouse in Hawaii. It's not just like a little, yeah. It's not like a little bamboo hut. You know, it's like an actual comfortable space that's very livable. So, yeah, I knew probably about a year before building it that I was dead set on the idea of a treehouse in Hawaii. And it had always been a dream, but it was kind of something out in the peripherals. And so now that like when I get to spend the night there, it's really like, wow, I'm dreaming in a place that only I could ever dream of.
Do you always want to live in Hawaii as a kid?
I did research all over the world because I knew I wanted to open an Airbnb. And it was based on, you know, variables such as like supply and demand and booking timelines, you know, how often or how early in advance do people book, and kind of based around my budget and a couple of my lifestyle choices. And so the three top contenders after doing this research all over the world were one, Napa. Wine country is a huge draw. It was close to San Francisco where I was living. There's a little subdivision that actually has relatively affordable land. You'd be surprised. And they're kind of open to unique structures. The second place was Turks and Caicos. The popularity of the place really exploded about 10 years ago. And so because it's such a like remote island, it still has a lot of opportunity for alternative accommodations. So I went up to Turks and Caicos. I really fell in love with the island. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. But the problem with Turks and Caicos was that there's a lot of hurricanes, and the building codes there are very strict because of these hurricanes. And so I knew I wasn't going to be able to meet those kind of building codes. And so the third choice was the Big Island, Hawaii, which has the #1 tourist attraction in the whole state, which is Volcanoes National Park. 1.5 million people every year visit the national park, and there's no hotels in the area. So I knew that if I could build something in that area, there would already be so much surplus of demand that if I could build something, it would be rented. And so that's how I wound up with Big Island. I had never been before. It had landed as the #1 place in my criteria.
Okay, so is that when you decided to move from outside?
Yeah, so I narrowed it down to Hawaii, outside of Volcanoes National Park, and I was 23 years old, so I had a pretty limited budget at that time. I was running my own business in San Francisco, and I knew I wanted to embark on this project. So what I did was built this scraping application that went through all of the Hawaii County parcel maps, and it looked for owners that had multiple properties side by side, who lived out of state, who were close to Volcanoes National Park, and who owed back taxes. So the application, scrapes through the parcel maps, and I kind of just work from the top down. I write a letter to the first people on this list, and they're a couple in Texas. And so I write, hey, I'm interested in your land. Like, would you be interested in selling it? Like, I see you've stopped paying the taxes on it. And so they respond instantly. And they're like, hey, we were a little confused when we got this message. Like, we don't really know who you are, but like this land we bought in the 70s because we thought we were going to retire here. And it turns out, life happens, things change, and we ended up retiring in Texas. We tried giving this land to our kids and our grandkids, and none of them wanted to pay the taxes on it. And so we'd be happy to give you the land for the back taxes that are owed on this property.
How much were they?
So I got 2 parcels of land in Hawaii, outside of Volcanoes National Park, for a total of $3,500.
What? Wait. How big is a parcel of land?
It's half acre, and it's untouched rainforest land.
Oh my God! Wow. So you paid the back taxes for $3,500, and you got your acre of land in Hawaii. What did you do next?
Okay, so before buying the land, I hired a photographer on Craigslist to go out to the land and scope it out for me. And so I PayPal'd her some money. I said, hey, I just need some pictures of this land. I kind of want to see what it's all about. And so she goes out to the land, she comes back, and she sends me these 2 pictures, and about 50% of the picture is just the inside of her car. And I read the message, and she's like, hey, Joey, turns out there's a lot of pig tracks in the area, and I was scared to get out of the car. This is the best photos that I have. And so that was all the info I had about the place. Just these 2 pictures from the inside of her car. But I knew the opportunity was still there.
How much did you pay her for those photos?
It was $50.
Oh my God. I should have been I want my money back.
Okay, so the first step, I showed up with 3 friends, and none of us had done anything like this before. We went to Home Depot and bought machetes and started. We got machetes and we started wading through the jungle, just trying to check it out because it's trees everywhere you can look, and it's very easy to get turned around. So we're looking for a potential place to put this house. And so we just
quick pause.
uh-huh.
Did you get these friends to buy their own plane tickets that fly from SF to Hawaii and then get them to machete for you for free? Did you even pay for their plane ticket?
No.
Wow, very charismatic.
They were adventurous types, and I'm grateful for like them being there at the early stage. But this is a crazy story with a lot of plot turns. So we go out to the land, and we swing these machetes for a few days, and eventually I find this tree, and it's the biggest tree on the lot, and it's big enough to hold like a spiral staircase, and I wanted that to be the entryway to my house. So find the tree, and we start clearing a little house pad with these, hand tools, no heavy machinery. We would cut down these guava trees and then lay them down as sticks for a little trail. And then over the sticks, we put a vapor layer, and over the vapor layer, we put down gravel. And it was 4 of us working, sunrise to sunset every day for 6 weeks. And eventually we had made this trail and cleared this pathway. And then, like I told you, it's kind of easy to get turned around in this lot. So we pulled up the GPS map, and our little pin turned out to be outside of the outline for the land I actually owned. It was about 80% of the trail was inside of the land I owned, but the tree itself and the clearing that we had made was on the neighboring lot.
Oh,
And
no.
so after 6 weeks, all my friends had return tickets and they all left. And I was stuck at the land by myself to completely restart. I had learned a lot, and I had developed, the muscles to shovel gravel and cut down trees. But it took another 6 weeks to create a new trail to a new house pad, which was actually in the center of my lot, so I could make sure that there was a margin of safety all the way around it.
Oh my god! How long did that take you?
Yeah, so that took 6 weeks of pure working with your hands labor in the sun. And mind you, I was kind of a computer technical guy beforehand. I had never held a machete. It's actually crazy. I had never even used a power tool before moving to Hawaii. So maybe I was a little too ambitious at the time. But yeah,
you never even gone camping, right? I know you hate camping. Where did you stay?
So I rented an apartment in Hilo Town, which was about 18 miles from the lot, but it was perfect because it was right next to Home Depot, and Home Depot is pretty much the only place on the island to buy materials. So every day I'd wake up with a list of things to buy from Home Depot, and then go collect gravel, and then drive up to the land and just start working.
Did you ever want to give up or stop, or were you like, nah, I'm doing this. I bought the land. I have to do it.
Yeah, there was plenty of times where I wanted to stop. It was definitely the most challenging thing I've ever done. When you're building a house, it comes down to what your team is like, what your resources are like, and what your experience is like. And I had no team. I was by myself. I had no resources. I mean, I had limited resources, rather. I was 23 years old. I was financing it myself. No construction loan or anything like that. And then I had never used a power tool before. Like some people have done little remodeling projects or painted around the house or done, something, built some sort of structure, and I had done none of that. Hawaii, because it's so remote, it's very difficult to source materials. So everything has to be shipped in from thousands of miles away. So you really only have access to what's there on the island. And then it rains every day. And then there's a volcano right next door, which is pumping out sulfuric acid. So all of your tools you buy from Home Depot in the morning, in the afternoon, they'll all be completely rusted out.
What?
Yeah. And you're just in the pouring rain. And so, yeah, there was plenty of times where I wanted to quit, I wanted to give up, and I wanted to go back to San Francisco. But I knew that like I was so far into it, and I knew the end goal, and I had like such a vision in mind that just kept driving forward until it was finally done. Mind you, the project initially was supposed to be 3 months long. It took a year and a half to build.
For the treehouse?
Yes.
Was it the everyday working?
Yes.
And you were just living off your savings for a year and a half?
Yes.
How old are you? 23?
23.
How did you have all these savings? Wait, was this from your other businesses?
Yeah. I had been running a business in the video game space since I was about 19. And so I was able to take out a small loan with Home Depot. They had a loan where you could just buy stuff from Home Depot, but really that was the only financing I took in. So yeah, I maxed out a few credit cards and put everything I had into building this house.
I admire your drive and not having a backup plan.
Yeah.
I've never been that kind of person. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably for the better. Like building a house like that isn't for everyone. It takes a certain type of person to realize that there might be some anxiety associated with it. Like if you're the type of person who needs a very logical plan, like follow all the rules, like maybe it's not the best option. But at the end of the day, I would definitely recommend building your own house because it's one of like the most empowering things you can do. If you're able to like build your own shelter, build your own house, you know that you'll always be okay.
Wait, so how did you know how to build a house? Did you just Google it or something?
Oh my gosh. The things you can learn on YouTube are incredible. Everything's on YouTube. And I also went to the library in San Francisco just about every day and read pretty much every book they had about like DIY construction and how to build tree houses. So I was voraciously preparing for it, but just reading a book about how to build something or watching a YouTube video is very different than like actually building it. So yeah, learning was a process by doing. And I think that's part of the reason why things took so long.
So wait, so your first tree house, was that the one that looks like a camera?
That's the one you stayed in, yeah.
How did you design it?
Yeah, so I designed it. I had some inspirations from these huts that are in New Zealand that are very sustainable, and they kind of have an architectural style that can be out in wilderness, but also give this aesthetic like it's a nicer place to stay. So I was really inspired by them. It's kind of like these backcountry hikes. You end up at these huts, and I started CAD modeling and doing little architectural projects to design like what my house would look like. I had a neighbor that was a advanced manufacturing engineer at Apple, and he owned a bunch of 3D printers. So I would make these little 3D models in CAD, and then he would print them out, and we would make like detachable roofs on the 3D houses, and then draw like little floor plans of how we wanted the floor plan to flow. So basically, I knew I wanted something that had asymmetric gables, which would provide maximum exposure for the solar panels, and then floor to ceiling windows because I knew I wanted to have a view that was like all trees. And so those were like the main driving architectural features of the house. Inside, there's like, very low furniture. Everything is simple, kind of minimal. It's only 16 feet by 25 feet. So 400 square foot floor plan. But that space is big enough for, you to sleep with your 4 friends.
Okay, yes, me and my friends camps in sleeping bags on Joey's floor. This treehouse is a studio.
So yeah, it's about 20 feet up in the air. It's surrounded by guava, ohia trees, and hapu'u ferns. Um, and there's kind of like this ladder slash staircase. It's not quite a ladder, it's not quite stairs, but it goes up through this trapdoor opening on the deck, which is called a lanai in Hawaii. And then you walk inside, and it's got the whole front entrance is all floor-to-ceiling windows. And then inside it has plumbing. It has a septic tank. It has a hot water heater for the shower. And then it has, enough outlets to power some laptops and phones and some LED light bulbs. So it's all pretty simple, but it takes a lot of reduction to get to a simple space like that. Like, I knew that, in such a small space, like everything has to have a purpose. Every section of the house has to have a reason it's there. And so like there's shelving, and it has enough storage space for me to live like very comfortably.
But how did you learn how to cut the trees and build the floors and figure out building the shower and the lighting?
Yeah. I mean, granted, it was a totally custom space. Everything was like designed specifically for the house, but oftentimes you're not like the first person to have that problem. Someone else has thought about it before you, and you can save a lot of time by looking on YouTube, talking to your neighbors, talking to people who have experience, and kind of getting guided in the right direction. A crazy story was that I had built out a model in CAD with every single wooden member for the entire house. Everything laid out with the proper spacing, how they're all going to be attached. Like it was the model. And I expected to like come to Hawaii and use that model every single day and follow it like down to a T with every piece of wood. And so it took the first day of following the model when I realized that a 2x4 is actually 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And so every single piece of wood, every single spacing in this entire model, which spent weeks to perfect, was wrong.
Wait, sorry. Like it's called a 2x4, but the actual dimensions are 1.5 by 3.5?
3.5. Yep.
Why would they call it that name?
You tell me. I have no idea.
Okay, so for your 2x4 wood pieces are not going to work. What did you do next?
That's when I realized that I was going to have to create everything custom for that space because, you might think you need a 16-foot board exactly, but the actual dimensions when you get there, because of the angles, because of the way that wood compresses and expands with humidity, it might need to be 15 feet and 10 inches. So everything was going to be a little bit off. And I knew I had the baseline model in the direction I wanted to head in, but following everything directly exactly as the model said wasn't going to work.
How often would you have to like tear down a portion because it didn't look the way you imagined and rebuild it?
All the time. So the house is up on posts. It's these kind of stilts, which prop the house 20 feet up in the air. And I did something which was pretty, and looking back on it, was pretty pivotal. I posted like a Facebook video that it said like, "Hey, I'm in Hawaii. Like, I need help. If anyone like wants to come out to Hawaii and help me build this house, like I'll let you stay here like for free for the rest of your life." So surprisingly, like a bunch of my friends took me up on it. So I had a pretty steady flow of people coming to Hawaii who had no experience, mind you, but they would all come and try to help out, provide a helping hand. So I had this friend coming out, and we had to figure out how to cut these posts so that they would all be the same height. But the terrain was on this hillside, like a slight slope to the hillside. So every piece of wood needed to be cut at a different height. And we bought these laser pointers and shined them at like a guiding post to measure out what the different heights are in all the different spots. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so we measured everything, all the different points on the ground, how different the height was between each one of them, and then cut the pieces of wood to all line up so that they'd all be the same height. And we spent all day working on this. It was like middle of the night. We put up all the posts, and then we were walking out. We turned around, and all the posts were different heights. Once you remove yourself from the situation, everything was different. So it was like everything had to be cut down a little bit to start over from a new height. So yeah, it was a constant learning environment where it turned out like there was a slight different angle in the laser, so it led to different measurements. So we just had to like get a level on the laser to figure out how to measure the heights properly.
Oh, wow.
Sorry,
Wow, that's so much redo work.
That's
No, but because I built like little models or just things on software, and I'm like, I gotta tear it down and start all over. But with a real house, it just sounds so hard. You must have gotten so ripped.
Oh my gosh. Like some of these beams, they weigh hundreds of pounds. And you have to figure out a way by yourself to get them 20 feet up in the air.
How did you do that?
With no like, heavy machinery. So what I would do would be I'd find something higher than where it needs to land, like a tree, and then I'd put a ladder up in the tree and attach a pulley. So you have some mechanical force, which makes it easier to lift the beams. And so I'd have two pulleys on both sides of the wood, and then pulley up one side to a certain point where I was comfortable, move the ladder to the other side, pulley it up a little bit higher so I was comfortable, move the ladder back, pulley it up higher, move the ladder back, pulley it up higher. And sometimes it would take an entire day to just get one wooden beam up in there.
Did you ever almost hurt yourself or anything?
No, I'm pretty safe. Like I felt like someone always knew where I was and what I was up to for the day. So I'd say I was risk averse in that sense. I never had any scares, but like I think over time you just get more comfortable. Like I hadn't really climbed a ladder before, and so by the end of it, I was like flying up and down the ladder. But yeah, if there was ever a time that I didn't feel safe, like going up on my roof and attaching solar panels, that would be a time when I would like ask someone who I knew had more experience to like do some sort of work trade where I would help them out in exchange for their help.
So it's helpful to have a lot of people nearby who were doing similar things to you.
Yeah, correct.
Wait, was there a reason you didn't pay for machinery or like labor to help you out or even build it?
Yeah, my budget was definitely a limiting factor. So I only had enough money to afford the materials. I didn't have enough money to pay for labor. Luckily, I did meet some other people that were building a house at the same time. So we did create some sort of like work swap where I would help them for a day. They would come over and help me for a day. But yeah, you have to be kind of creative with how you're able to get help without being able to afford like professional contractors.
No, fascinating. How much were the materials total for the first treehouse?
All in, I think I spent about 60 grand. So that was a lot nicer of a place than I could ever buy with 60 grand.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Also, I'm guessing the 60 grand includes the materials you messed up on and threw away.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. Well, not as much. At the end of the day, like I was able to take the scrap wood and turn it into a bed frame or a table or a piece of furniture downstairs. So there wasn't. I was pretty thoughtful about scrap wood and the waste that's associated with construction. Construction is one of the dirtiest industries. So the house was sustainable, and I wanted every part of the process to be sustainable as well.
Yeah. Can we delve a little bit into how this house is sustainable versus a normal house?
Yeah. So it's run off of solar energy. Um, I have three 330-watt panels, which are connected to battery bank. It's run off of essentially golf cart batteries. It's four 6-volt batteries run in series and parallel to create a 12-volt system. So the house is completely run off of the sunlight. And that battery bank is big enough to, last for, if it rains straight for like 5 days, the battery bank will still have enough to last. And then all the water from the house is collected from the rain. So luckily, Hawaii, the part of the Big Island where my house is, it rains like there's like a 30% chance of rain every single day. So there's plenty of rain there. Hawaii really is like the perfect place to do an off-grid system like that because there's ample sunlight, a lot of rain, and it's pretty like accepted in the area. So yeah, the house is totally off the grid. And when people associate like the word off the grid, it kind of has a stigma about it. But you can have a totally nice place and have it be sustainable. Yeah. There is a propane water heater, um, which is fine. It's more efficient than using electricity to heat water. There's a water pump which is run off the solar as well. So yeah, totally self-sustaining house. I don't have an electricity bill. I don't have a mortgage. I don't have anything like that. It just kind of runs itself.
How do you handle the trash?
I have a housekeeper that will collect the trash and sort out the recycling, and then she'll take it down to the dump, which is right next to the house.
Wait, there was a worm pit.
Oh, that's Rob's house.
Oh, wait, what does the worm pit do again?
My neighbor has a septic tank, which is composed of worms that decompose the waste that lands in his septic. This isn't a common way of
oh, it's not.
Oh, of septic. He worked with a researcher at University of Hawaii, who is a big proponent of this new kind of form of worms. But mine is more of a traditional like septic tank.
Okay, gotcha. Wait, so does it just go in the dirt?
Christine, aren't you a septic expert?
No.
No, it goes through multiple filtration processes and then gets into like a gravel leach field.
Wow, and you built all of that yourself?
Yeah. So in the different stages of construction, shockingly, the most difficult was plumbing. Like, I have so much respect for plumbers. It's like rocket science. You have to know the flows, the velocity, the different material research that goes into plumbing of a home. And so because the system is a little bit more advanced with all of this, rainwater capture and it being all off grid, plumbing, it took months to figure out. Electrical was surprisingly easy. A lot of the finished carpentry was kind of fun. Tiling, I enjoyed. Plumbing, if I was ever building another place, that would be the first thing I'd hire someone to do.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, it does sound painful. Well, okay, so you built your tree house, and then now you get to Airbnb it out. Only took a year and a half. Were you worried about losing all your money, by the way, before you started making money?
I did a lot of research beforehand and had the data to have confidence if I could get this thing launched, like it would be successful. Was I worried about that? I wouldn't say I was worried because the moment that when I actually did launch it, it was just getting bookings. Like my whole calendar looked like Swiss cheese. There was just like little tiny holes in it, and the whole rest of the time it was booked. There was so much demand to stay in the area, especially in like a treehouse in Hawaii. Yeah. So yeah, I was pretty confident that it was going to be fine.
How did you figure out what price to charge for the Airbnb?
Okay. So I've learned about pricing. And the way it works at Airbnb is that they build a model based off of your area. So they kind of look at the similar comparable homes in your area and they think this is kind of what the price we think your house should be. But they allow you to set whatever price you want. They just give you a suggestion. So once you get 3 bookings, they stop using this model of what's similar, what's comparable. Now they have enough data to provide like a median number for what your pricing is. And then everything based in like the search rankings runs off of this median number. So if your median number is $1,000 a night, and then you put your pricing at $2,000 a night, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, this place is way overvalued. Let's like ding them in the search rankings. So really your first 3 bookings, the pricing you get on them dictate a lot of how your future will go. It's really, really difficult to go upstream and increase your pricing over time. Even if you do like tremendous changes and really improve the place, it's still very difficult to raise your pricing over time. So it's important to start out with a high price, even if that takes a little bit longer for you to get bookings.
Intriguing, which you did not have an issue with. Yeah.
Yeah. But a lot of times when people are first launching, they just want to price it very low, provide it at a discount so they can start getting reviews. But the strategy is really to anchor your price high at the beginning.
Yeah, and I think you get a higher price because you're charging for an experience, not a place to stay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and finding out things that are unique about your space, and really providing that in your pictures, your description, your title, and like highlighting what makes you unique.
Yeah. Am I allowed to ask you how much profit a year you get off the treehouse?
I can tell you that the treehouse has paid for itself in the first 2 years. So okay. that was big relief. Almost 1,000 people have stayed there. And it's been, it was booked almost every single night.
Awesome. And then in the meantime, you're just building your other tree houses.
Yeah. I was helping other people with their tree houses that they were building. Kind of became a thing. There was all these young, intelligent people all moving to Hawaii building tree houses in the same neighborhood.
Yeah, that's a cute community.
Yeah.
How many houses do you Airbnb out right now?
Well, so they launched legislation on the Big Island that limits short-term vacation rentals. Basically, if your lot was created after 1973, you can no longer vacation rental, and all of my properties were created after 1973. So
just before you were born. Yeah.
So I've had to stop advertising all of them actually, but at my peak, I was helping 3 sizable property management companies with their listings. So it was probably about 50 luxury homes on the Big Island.
Wow. So you're like an agent would take like a percentage fee?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to work at Airbnb, so I knew what it took to be successful on the platform. Not too many people go from like running a property management company to working at Airbnb, but I kind of went the other way, like working at Airbnb to going and diving deeper into this sector. Yeah. So I would go in and optimize their listings and run experiments on them. Testing out headlines, pictures, the content, really making sure that it showed well. And then I was paid off the performance and the increase in bookings.
Nice. Wait, so what's next for you now?
I can't talk about it.
Really?
Well, there's some stuff that I'm working on right now, but
maybe we could do interview round 2 in like a year.
Maybe.
Interesting. So how did you end up on HGTV?
So HGTV was looking for properties to feature in their new series called Tiny Paradise, and the way they set out the casting calls was they sent them to Home Depots in very like tropical areas. So the Home Depot in Hilo knew that I was going in there every single day, and they were like, "Hey, like, you know, we just got a casting call from HGTV. Do you want to be on the show?" And so I started talking to them, and then it came to the realization that they wanted to see a project from the very, very beginning to the end, the whole entire series of like trials and tribulations. And so my house was too far along. I was nearing the end of the process, and so I was able to connect them with a friend of mine who was building, and it was at the very early stages of their house. That friend of mine ended up like recruiting me to be on her show, which is called Tiny Hawaiian Getaway or something like that. What is it called?
Did you not watch yourself? How do you not know the name of the show?
Oh, it was so much fun. Like I had never been on like a reality TV show before. It was just like how they make like HGTV shows was pretty fun. And the show did really well. It was like the 9th most watched show the day it came out. And so it got a lot of like really positive reception, and they said there might be opportunities for us later down the line.
You got any fan mail?
I got some tweets.
Nice. Yeah, I was like, fan mail wouldn't make it because you don't have a real address. Oh my god. Wait, what episode of the show is it? What's the show called again?
The show is called Tiny Paradise. The episode's Tiny Hawaiian Getaway.
Nice. Okay. I had trouble finding the episode. I'm gonna search this week. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. What do you think your biggest mistake was during this whole process and journey?
Biggest mistake is that I think that in a process, in a challenge that's that cumbersome, it's really easy to get caught up in it, and you take for granted the small things. I didn't really like photograph any bit of my journey. I was just so busy working all day long. I wish I would have taken some more time to really appreciate that, like, I had this kind of opportunity. I think that would be the biggest mistake, is like not fully appreciating it in the moment, like how like adventurous and crazy this thing I was able to like embark on. So now when I do things, I try to like be more mindful and like really appreciate the moment of what's happening.
That's so I give all my guests 30 seconds to pitch themselves, like whatever they want at the end of my podcast. So anything you like to promote?
Yeah. I don't have anything to promote at the moment. And I'll just say that Christine's podcast would be my number one thing to promote. If you listen to her and her level of like logic and accuracy and the way she dives deep into people's stories, like, it's truly been inspiring. So I'm looking forward to how big of an opportunity this podcast is for you.
Oh, thank you. If any listeners want to write fan mail to Joey, since he doesn't have a real address, you can just send it to our website and I will forward it to him.
Oh, beautiful. Well, Christine, hana ho. Until next time.
Mahalo.
It's been a pleasure. Mahalo, my friend.
Hey guys, hope you enjoy my interview with the always fascinating Joey Roth. If you'd like to see a picture of the treehouse you built or learn more about him, check out the newschoolpodcast.com. I hope you learned a lot and enjoyed the show. Please support us by subscribing, rating us, and if you're feeling particularly generous, leave a review. Have a great day, guys. Try something new today.